and welcome back to my weekly videos. So this week we're going to talk about spheres, right? Which is taking a circle shape and turning it into a sphere, right? So a sphere would be rounded, right? And last week we talked about how things like cones and cylinders, even though you can add in some curves on the top and bottom to make them look more 3D or realistic, what really counts is the light. And with spheres, basically the only thing you can do to make it more realistic is light, right? So let me show you what I mean. So if I have a circle, shape, right? And I just have it like that. And say I were to, here, let me outline it so you guys can see it better. Okay, so hey, say I have my circle. If I were to go in and just color it with one plain color and not have any light in it, then it's still going to look like a circle, right? It's going to look flat. It won't look as 3D or realistic. In order to get the 3D look with circles to make them look like spheres, you have to have lighting, the highlights that we talked about, which is light that bounces off the object or gets absorbed. But the light that's on there and the shadows that it creates. Right, so say this is my circle. It still doesn't really look 3D. Right? When you add in something like a shadow, which would be rounded right below it, if you add in something like that, it starts to look a little bit more realistic and a little bit more 3D, but still not quite. Right? So the biggest thing that you can do is shade it. So let me draw another circle. Okay. And I'll take that same pink crayon, and this time I'm going to shade it, right? So when we're shading, the easiest way to do that is to do it with pressure of your hand, right? So we've kind of talked about this. So the harder you press down, the darker it's going to be. And if you press down nice and soft and so gentle, then the lighter it's going to be. So usually when you're shading a circle, okay, so let me hold this. All right, so we have right around the outside edge, right in here, you see how it's just a little bit darker, and then it gets lighter on the inside, and then it has like this nice little ball of light from this light that I have right over here. Or if you have one that's not plasticky, that doesn't really like super bounce the light back at you, but has a whole bunch of little holes, like this is made out of wool. Right, so if you have lots of little holes where the light gets trapped so it can't bounce as much back at you. It might not have that like shiny dot like this one does. Okay, so things that are like plastic and glass and whatnot um, with harder surfaces that are more glossy will reflect more light back. But something like this wool ball that I use in my dryer, it doesn't really have that as much. All right, and this one's harder to tell, but there's a bit of dark right in here along the side, and right in here it's a bit lighter. Okay, so I'm going to turn my circle sideways because it's going to be easier for me to get in here to do it. Right, so when I am shading a circle, I go in and almost like the letter C, I'm going to take something like a pencil or a colored pencil or crayon, and I'm going to press down harder right along those outside edges, just right along one edge. All right, and you can do it on the other side, but notice how this is thicker, and this side I'll make really thin, just a little bit. All right, so I have my darker pink. And then as I go in, and I go in circles and circles and circles, I'm going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. And press down softer and softer and softer. Okay. Now it looks a bit more 3D. Now let's see how much more 3D it looks if I were to add in a shadow, right? Like a curve underneath it. I'm going to go in. I'm going to add in a shadow. Okay. And here, I'll blend these so you guys can see that shadow even better. Okay. So do you see what kind of difference that makes, right? So just the like lighter in the sphere versus just one flat color makes it look more real. Okay. So there are other ways that you can add in that light that are a little bit easier than this. I definitely encourage you to try with pressing down harder and getting lighter and lighter. And if you haven't done my shading and relaxing video, you should definitely do it because that helps a lot with this. So, say you have, here, I'll just jump right in with a marker here. I'm going to do another circle. About. It's okay. Your circles aren't going to be perfect. They might be like ovals or eggs, and that's okay. Still rounded, right? Still pretty much the same kind of shading. So another thing you can do is you can add in just like little highlights, right? So say if I were to go in and add in almost like a comma shape, right? It's like a little curved space. And if I kept that white, uncolored and the rest just with a flat color, just that little bit of a highlight right in there will still make it seem a lot more rounded and realistic and just a circle with one flat color. Right? This is especially good to do with things that are like bubbles, right? Or we've all talked about eyes. Eyes are spheres. It's just that a lot of it goes back into our, you can't see the rest of it. You just see the front where you see. Right? So eyes, it's like a whole circle, but it's cut off by your eyelids. And then inside it, you have a couple more circles. You got that circle for your iris, which is the colored part of your eye. And you got that circle for your pupil, which is the black part of the eye. So when we've talked about doing eyes before, we talked about leaving just like a little dot or a comma or some kind of white right in there. Right? And we do that to make it look more realistic because it's curved, so it's gonna have that light shining. But your eyes are also a little bit wet, right? Nobody likes dry eyes. Super uncomfortable. So you have that extra reflection coming from your eyes because they are wet. So let's see if I made my eye blue. So something as simple as like a little dot or comma can also work in something that is a sphere to make it look more realistic. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and pause here for just a minute, and then we're going to split off. So I'm going to do one project for the lower grades, one project for the upper grades, and then I'll have my extra video with the light box that you can just check out for fun. Okay? All right, I'll see you soon.